All right, gang, we're going to share some stuff with you, and we're very excited to be here. I'm probably most excited because I get to share with you my love of my life, my bride, Ginny Abuyuan. She has been overcoming and kicking cancer's butt. And is that cool? She totally inspires me. And this is a picture I wanted to show at the family reunion, but this is my bride when we got married. And she had both breasts here, but I didn't marry her though for her breasts, okay? So just I married her for her mind, her brain. Anyway, she's the love of my life, and I've learned so much from Ginny these years that we've been together, and she inspires me. This last 6 months have been something else. And man, I love her so much, and I can't wait to unleash her on you. All right, so sweetie, come on up. Ginny Abuyuan.
Sorry, I'm going to sit. All right. Okay, so I'm picking this mic. I hope this is the right one. I was told I could pick whichever one I liked. Okay, so I thought that I would share with you today a little bit about what does do the do look like if you're the supportive spouse, right? Okay, I have always been the supportive spouse, except for a little bit at the beginning when I was the unsupportive spouse. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. Okay, so please forgive me if I refer to the supportive spouse as the wife, or if I say she, or you all are smart people, and you all can replace the pronouns and the titles as you see fit, right? So to your appropriate situation. Anyway, so I thought I'd go back and kind of give you a little background. There's no one way to be a supportive spouse, and I've been all kinds of supportive spouses. So Alex and I have been at least partially self-employed for 27 years, which is crazy because I'm only 27 years old. So, you know. Well, you actually do a better job of that than I do, remembering our anniversary. So this goes all the way back to the Amway business. So we got in the Amway business back in 1992. 93. Okay, 93. January 1993, apparently. So Alex, well, we had been married like, a year or something. Still newlyweds. 2 years we've been married, still newlyweds. But, we were both working, and we were not hurting, but we were not as comfortable as we wanted to be either. So when an old acquaintance or coworker called Alex and said, "Hey, are you open?" He said, "Yes, what do I do?" But he did that on his own and got involved, and I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know anything about it. So to me, that was kind of like, an invader. That was something that was taking his attention away from me. So, he was off doing his thing. So it wasn't like I was trying to, sabotage him or anything, but I wasn't supportive either because, this was some foreign entity. But then he invited me to come to some stuff. So like my first thing was a weekend function, which may have been like jumping in the deep end. But so I'm pretty sure that this is what it looked like the entire drive there, and probably like the first day and a half. It kind of looked like this.
I don't believe it.
No, it really did. But I got around to people. I saw the opportunity, I saw the system, and I started buying in. So not like I was going to do anything, but it was okay if he did it. And I think I actually said after that weekend, you know what? We'll replace our income. You retire first, and I'll just keep working so that you can go like full time and, build a business. I think I actually said that. But what actually happened was the more I experienced and the more people I met, the more involved I got. And it was because I was exposed to it. So we kind of became, partners in the whole thing. And we were both selling. We were both recruiting. We were both building. I was doing the bookkeeping because no beans would have been counted if it was up to him. So, my accounting background had me counting and arranging all the beans, which I've kept doing all the way along. But we replaced my income first, and I did flush my stupid job. Back in 1995, was it 1995? Yeah, right before our first child was born. So I was like 8 months pregnant, and I never went back to work, and it was wonderful. So, with kids at home, kept building the business, kept working together. And then, child number 2 came along, child number 3 came along. By that point in time, that's child number 3 right over there at the camera. When Maddie was about, I think maybe like almost a year old, that's when Alex got involved in insurance, and Andy gave him the call and said, "Hey, Bo." So at that point, I was kind of mired down in children. So I was still the supportive spouse, but I wasn't like out there doing everything with him. I was what I call the supportive at-home spouse. So I was raising the children, managing our home, and making things so that he could go out and do what he needed to do. And that's an important role, because if I wasn't doing that, he couldn't go out and do the things that he needed to do. If I was looking to him and saying, "Hey, I need you to do this. Honey, would you do this? Honey, would you do this? Would you put the kids to bed every night? Would you?" So we did that, added 2 more kids on top of that. So finally, fast forward to when the kids are finally all in school. Once the kids were all in school, I started kind of asking, "Hey, what can I do? Can I help? Can I? And I think I said, "Can I?" for about 2 years before he finally threw me a couple of bones and let me do a couple of things. Seriously, I had to ask a long time. That is absolutely the way it happened. Yeah, who are you going to believe? Yeah. So then I kind of went back into the helper mode. Started doing a few things, cleaning up this here, getting my hands in this here. And I guess he decided that that it was all right, because he, let me do more and more. As the kids got older, as the kids got more independent, we kind of got back to where we were partners again. I was still working at home, so I could still be there when the kids came home from school. I could still take them wherever they needed to go and work when I needed to work. So what I do for our business today is still the bookkeeping, because beans would never get counted over here. But I'm also our lead manager, so I train all of our new agents on the lead system, and I manage all the leads and GMRs and all that kind of stuff. And then I also pull our resumes so that we can feed our recruiting machine, so our recruiters have something to do. So my main point is there's no one way to be that supportive spouse It can look all different ways. So you really just have to figure out what works for you. And it can and probably will change over time because situations change over time, as evidenced by our story over the years. If you're in a situation where you're trying to figure out what that looks like for you, don't hesitate to ask questions. Don't hesitate to reach out to other couples and find out what has worked for them, what hasn't worked for them. There's lots of models out there. Reach out to your growing upline and ask them if they can get you in touch with other people who might be in a similar situation to you. I think we probably have every possible example in the Alliance because we've got a lot of couples and a lot of people have found different ways that work for them. So, you might find that you both want to be out there doing everything. You both want to be out there selling. You both want to be out there recruiting. Fantastic. Maybe that's kind of looks like a Mike and Noelle Leventovich. Or you divide and conquer, and one of you's doing the selling, one of you's doing the recruiting, and it looks more like a James and Jane. Probably what you're going to see most commonly, though, is kind of this supportive helper where you've got maybe one spouse who's scrubbing apps or working the pending or doing the bookkeeping like I did or, setting appointments. You heard at family reunion, Angie Owens talking about how she used to set appointments for Michael. So there's lots of different examples and lots of different combinations. But also that really important supportive at-home spouse where maybe you're not out there, you're not doing things physically in the business, but you are doing all the background stuff to make it so that your spouse can go do what they need to do. And that could be raising children, it could be managing your own career or both, managing the household. I also want to make sure that everybody understands that you don't have to be Noelle Leventovich. You don't have to be Jane Hill. You don't have to be Angie Owens. You don't have to be Heather Fitzgerald. We already have them.
That's good. Right?
But what we need is you and figure out how you fit in. So if you can be who you are, you're going to inspire the person who needs to hear from you. Because there's somebody out there who you're going to speak to. You don't know who that person is. They don't know that you're going to speak to them. But you're the person who will identify with them. So be the best person that you can be, and in whatever role that you find that you can do in this business. Also, don't compare yourself. If you see Heather Fitzgerald and you say, "Oh my gosh, I could never do that." You know what? She wasn't always like that. She grew into that. So don't compare yourself today. Maybe you've just been in the business a year or 2 years or something like that. Don't compare yourself to somebody who's already grown through the business. Let yourself grow at your own pace and just be the best you can be, because there's somebody out there who does need to hear from you and hear your story, and that's what's really going to touch them. So I just want to take a couple of minutes and talk to the active spouse that maybe has an unsupportive spouse. Because, I was like that for a little while. But so what can you do to help your spouse to maybe not be unsupportive? Here's my suggestions. Don't push or force. I mean, what happens when somebody tries to force you to do something you don't want to do? You're just going to be met with more resistance. That doesn't help. So don't push, don't force. Also make it attractive. If what they're seeing is you having a horrible time and you fighting with yourself and, you cursing over scrubbing your apps and, that's not going to be very attractive for them to want to get involved in. Invite them to come with you without any expectations. Invite them to come to a hot spot. Invite them to come to a weekend. The more that you can get them around the system and meet the people, I think that is the biggest thing that can work on somebody is understanding the system and meeting some of the tremendously awesome people that we have in the Alliance. Treat your spouse the way you want them to be. So if you treat them as the supportive spouse that you want them to be, or if you want your husband to be the king, treat him like the king. If you want your wife to be the queen, treat her like the queen. And people tend to become the way they're treated, the way you speak to them. You can't change another person, but you can change yourself. So you can't work on another person, but you can work on yourself. So don't concentrate on trying to change your spouse or work on them. But if you work on yourself and make yourself the best you can be, that's going to be an attractive thing for your spouse to want to follow. A couple of books that are my favorite books, and these are not books that you give your spouse necessarily if they're unsupportive. These are maybe books for you. The 5 Love Languages is one of my favorites because you want to understand maybe how they are interpreting your love, how they're feeling it, how they're seeing it, and then also what you say when you talk to yourself, just to make sure that you are speaking to them as you want them to be, and also speaking to yourself the way you want to be. So I think that's everything that I have. Yep. So with that, I want to bring up apparently my husband again. All right. So this is the love of my life. We've had a lot going on the last few months, and from moment number 1, he couldn't have been any more supportive. So he's really taken up every bit of slack from me, and kept up with everything himself as well. So here's my king.
Wow, man, I tell you what, how can you not fight the battles when you have someone like that to come home to you? One thing she never did when she was supporting me was she never asked me how many sales I made. She didn't put that pressure on me. She goes, I'm proud of you, honey, for doing this for our family. When she would do that, it would just make me feel, she never looked at my performance. She never, and the other thing I did not do is I didn't counsel with her on my business. I counseled with Andy Albright because you know what? She and I shared the same bank account. Isn't it better to counsel with someone who had a bigger bank account than you? And so I always counseled with Andy. You know what? She knew that I talked to Andy. That's why she could have confidence that I was getting the right advice. So she never gave me advice on the business. She knew that Andy was doing his thing with me, and she gave me my room to grow, even though she might have thought, oh man, Andy would want you to. She never said that. She let Andy work with me and give me a chance to grow. So, sweet, I appreciate it. I'm very humbled. Anyway,